Now it's time for us to write the PHP script that will update the is_active value in the database if the user verifies his account. We can do that by just putting the PHP script on top of these HTML tags, but we just want to do that or put that inside a different script. So inside the script folder, we create a new file and call it activate.php. So this will hold the scripts that will update the column. So the first thing we need to do, as usual, is to include the PHP tags. Then we save that. After doing that, we should also call the global variable, which is the connection, which is the global variable. Now what we want to do here is to get the activation key from the address or from the URL via the get request. Then after getting that, we use it to update the column in the database. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to write an if statement to get the key from the address bar and check if the key is empty or not. So what we do here is we say if it's not empty, that is the variable gets which is going to take the value key. And recall, this key is the same as the one we have here. Inside the insert.php, if you go down to the message that we created, this is the key that we have here because it's going to appear in the URL. So once it appears in the URL, it's going to be equal to the activation key of the user that was generated when the user created a new profile or when the user signed up. So we are getting this key from the address bar and it's going to be equal to the activation key of the user. So if that key is not empty, because we are getting it via the get request, if that key is not empty, then we set this gets equal to a new variable we call key. So equal to, so it's going to be equal to, we set it equal to the gets the key. So if it's not equal to empty in the address bar, if it's not equal to empty, then we set it equal to this new variable. That is, if we get the key from the address bar or from the URL and that key is equal to the user's activation key, because each user will have a unique activation key. So if it is equal to this key that we have in the get request and it's not empty, we set it equal to this variable we created. Else we just set this variable key to be empty. We just set it to be empty. So we've gotten this key from the address bar or from the URL and set it equal to this variable. Now the next thing that we need to do, we need to get the activation key of the user. So the first thing we need to do, we need to make sure that the key is not equal to empty. So if key is not equal to empty, then we perform or write the codes inside of this. So what we need to do, we need to check SQL equal to my SQLi underscore query. and it's going to take in two parameters. The first one is going to be connection, then the second one is going to be the query statement. And the query statement is select all from sign up where activation underscore key is equal to this key that we got. So what we are saying is we select all. If the key is not empty, then we select all the data from the database or from the sign up table in the database where the activation key in the database is equal to this key that we got from the URL through the GET request. So select all from sign up where activation key is equal to the key we got from the GET request. Now, after doing that, the next thing is we need to count the number of rows that has this particular key that meets this criteria. So we use count equal to my SQLi underscore num underscore rows, and it will take in the SQL statement into it, and this is it. So with this, we've selected all data in the database that meets this criteria, and we count them. So as I said earlier, this count will always return an integer. So the next thing that we need to do now is we need to check if this count is equal to 1. So if count is equal to 1, then the next thing we need to do is we need to loop through the database to retrieve the is underscore active value, because what we want to do now is we want to update the is underscore active value, which by default is 0. So once the user clicks on the link, it will be updated to 1. So we do that by using a while loop, and the while loop is like this. While we create a variable, we can call it row, is equal to, it's a MySQL function that we can use to loop through the database. It's called MySQLi underscore fetch underscore array, and it takes the SQL statements, SQL. So what this does is it's going to loop through the database, and we try to return all the values that meets this criteria based on what we passed in here. So in the next video, we'll continue and show how we can update the is underscore active column in the database.